Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. And this is the Core Picks live stream for Monday, January 16th. If you're watching live, welcome in. If you're watching our replay, thanks for watching as well. If you have any questions throughout the live stream, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you're watching on replay, feel free to drop a comment down on the video as well. And I'll answer your questions as quickly as possible. It's a pretty interesting slate today overall. We are looking at two different slates, though, when we talk about DraftKings versus FanDuel. DraftKings just has 5 games on it. FanDuel has 7. Always an interesting day with the Martin Luther June. Always an interesting day with Martin Luther King Jr. for the NBA. A lot of times we'll see on this day more games on the NBA, kind of all day thing too as well. But overall, I think there's only 9 games in total today. So pretty interesting slate. Obviously, the first one and the last game of the day are not on there on either site, but then DraftKings obviously decided to make it a 5-game slate just to make it a little bit more flexible. So the DraftKings slate starts at 3 o'clock Eastern time, and the FanDuel one will start at 2:30 Eastern time since they included that 2:30 game as well. But pretty much what we're going to do in today's stream, look through some injuries, kind of talk through it. When I do the injuries, I'll mention the Boston Celtics and the Charlotte Hornets game as well as the Lakers and Rockets game for tonight, just in case anybody's playing like an all-day slate or a single game slate or anything else like that as well. But without further ado, we'll kind of get into the injuries for tonight's slate overall, or for tonight's, can't even say tonight's games, for today's games overall. So for the Boston Celtics, they're without Jaylen Brown and Danilo Gallinari, so they're pretty much all the way healthy. Besides the Jaylen Brown piece there's some advantages to take advantage of, or there's some pieces that you could probably take advantage of. In that case, Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon going to look a little bit better than they normally would. Grant Williams, so we'll see what that starting lineup looks like today if they go with the double bigs or if Grant Williams slides in there as well. Then for the Charlotte Hornets, they are without Kelly Oubre. Gordon Hayward still lists as doubtful with his hamstring injury, so he's unlikely to play. Cody Martin was recently downgraded to questionable, so there's a good chance that he doesn't play today. So maybe just solidifying the starter minutes overall for this team. Maybe you get somebody off the bench that plays a couple extra minutes more than normal, or, that's probably like a Dennis Smith Jr., if you're going to be honest, but it's still kind of hard with him and Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball all out there at the same time, but it's not anything that you can't do at the same time, especially since LaMelo does have a little bit of length as well. Then we move over to what will be the first game of the FanDuel slate, and Tyrese Halliburton's out once again for the Pacers. We've seen Nembhard get a couple more minutes. Last game wasn't the greatest, but you can definitely take some shots on him today. You can take some shots on TJ McConnell, who's really only getting about 24 minutes, but he's been pretty effective in those minutes overall. And then we have Miles Turner still listed as questionable. He's missed the past 3 games with a back injury. We'll see who starts in his place if he is to miss, whether it's an Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith. You can definitely take shots on both of them today on FanDuel if that's something you really want to do. And then Goga Batazzi, one of their other reserve centers, is still dealing with an illness. I believe he missed the most recent game. We have Daniel Tice and Kendall Brown, both listed as game time decisions, but they're really just out today. Once again, it sounds like Tice is tracking towards playing pretty soon, and Brown still sounds like he's at least a week away at this point in time. For the Milwaukee Bucks, Serge Ibaka, Joe Ingles, Chris Middleton all out tonight. Bobby Portis, Drew Holiday, and Giannis Antetokounmpo all listed as probable to play today. And I did say tonight, once again, just kind of getting used to today since we got all these day games once again. Then we move over to what will be the first game of the DraftKings slate with the New Orleans Pelicans and Cleveland Cavaliers. For the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram, EJ Liddell, Zion Williamson all out once again. So pretty standard here. We have Herb Jones listed as questionable once again. He's missed a couple games now. We'll see if he's back today or not. Obviously, if he's not, then Dyson Daniels probably gets to start in his place once again. Interesting GPP paydown option at that point in time. But not too much has changed with this Pelicans team. We're still looking at CJ McCollum, Jonas Valanciunas, kind of the high upside plays there. Their price tags have both been increasing on both sites. Trey Murphy's kind of bounced back the last 2 games, so you can take some shots on him in GPP if that's something you want to do. Najee Marshall, price did come down a little bit, so you can go there if you really, really want to. And then on the Cavaliers side, we got Dean Wade out once again. Dylan Windler listed as doubtful. So pretty much as healthy as they're going to get at this point in time. You can take some shots on Garland. You can take some shots on Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen. Karis LeVert maybe here and there in GPPs if that's something you really want to do. Particularly, I like Jared Allen more on the DraftKings side, where his price is only $5,900, looking pretty good tonight overall, or I should say today overall once again. Then we get to the Toronto game, and it's just Fred VanVleet is questionable with a back injury. It's bothering him once again. So if he doesn't play, Malachi Flynn's going to look like an interesting pay down option overall. Gary Trent's going to get a bump up. Scotty Barnes is going to get a bump up. Pascal Siakam's probably going to get a bump up as well. And then maybe you can take a shot on some of these backup centers, whether it's like a Chris Boucher, a Precious Achua, or something like that, who could see some extra minutes as well. It just kind of depends on how their rotation shakes out. We could see Juancho Herman Gomez get that start once again, but mainly a GPP pay down option. So let's see. We got your mom in here asking Celtics win against Charlotte or and Bucks against Indiana. So the Bucks should be able to beat the Pacers, especially if Miles Turner doesn't play tonight. It's going to look pretty good, or I should say today. Excuse me. Keep saying tonight, but it's a day game, so they should be able to beat the Pacers pretty easily. But every once in a while, the Bucks will flop. But as long as like Giannis is playing, should be pretty safe there. And the Celtics. The Hornets are a sneaky team. I'll say that just because they stay close in a lot of games that they're not expected to. And they do have offense and they can score the ball pretty well. So, and the Celtics kind of play down to the level of their competition more often than not, it seems too. And without that piece of Jaylen Brown, not particularly a game that I'm betting on just because a couple different factors there with the Hornets being able to score some points. Celtics kind of playing down to the level of competition at some points in time as well. But the Bucks won. Feel pretty comfortable with that. Back to Toronto. We already talked about Fred VanVleet questionable. I don't expect him to play today, if I'm being honest. So Malachi Flynn's going to look pretty good overall. Not in my core picks, but there is a good chance that he's up there by the time we get closer to lock, as I do my updated core. About 20 or 30 minutes prior to lock. Let me see down here. Knicks are all the way healthy at this point in time. And they mainly just been running 6 guys out there a ton of minutes and then kind of little breathers for other guys. So you're mainly looking at the starters plus quickly if you're going to play anybody tonight. Julius Randle looks a little bit better on FanDuel. Mitchell Robinson looks pretty good on DraftKings today overall. The Warriors, they're without JaMychal Green, Andre Iguodala, Jonathan Kuminga, Klay Thompson, James Wiseman once again. So the big changes today, Andre Iguodala and Klay Thompson both obviously out. Probably Jordan Poole steps into that starting lineup. We could see DiVincenzo there if they really want to keep Poole with the second unit, but not too much value on this team overall. If you want to take some shots on like Curry or Wiggins or Poole or DiVincenzo, you could do that. DiVincenzo might be the most interesting one. I believe he's $5,000 on DraftKings, especially some bench run there, especially if Bradley Beal doesn't play in this game and turns into a blowout. He could look pretty good as well. Wizards, not a very interesting team for me personally overall. Bradley Beal is listed as questionable. He kind of practiced yesterday. We'll see if he's back today or not. I would assume that they just give him the extra day, but it's kind of hard to tell at this point in time. But since the last time they did bring him back and then he got hurt right away, I think they lean on the side of caution tonight overall. Porzingis does have the upside, just hasn't shown it very much lately. Kuzma's kind of the same way. Gafford only played like 16, 17 minutes last time in his return. So not a ton of value that we're really looking for on this Washington team overall. If you want to take some shots here and there, that's definitely fine though. For the Miami Heat, we have Nikola Jovic, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Omar Yurtseven all out once again. Caleb Martin listed as questionable. He's actually probably going to be a pretty big impact on this team overall. I'm not going to say the entire slate, but just kind of the fallout effects. Obviously, they get Tyler Hero back today, but if Martin plays, there's less minutes to go around. Could impact Gabe Vincent, Victor Oladipo, Max Strus, guys like that. If he plays, still be around just after you get Hero and ball back on the same. And then for the Atlanta Hawks, we have Trae Young listed as probable to play. He missed the last game out, I believe, with the shoulder injury. And then Clint Capella is expected to make his return tonight after dealing with the calf injury for a while. We'll see whether or not he's in that starting lineup or not. I don't expect him to really play more than 22 minutes tonight. That would be the max that I expect in his return. Okongwu is more of a GPP play at this point in time just because we don't know how many minutes these guys are going to get. You might see John Collins at the center position for a couple minutes tonight as well. Or I should say this afternoon once again. Then for the Utah Jazz, we have Kelly Olynyk out once again. Walker Kessler will likely get the start. And then we have Lauri Markkanen questionable. He did miss the last time out, and Rudy Gay is questionable as well. Doesn't really make too big impact overall, though. If Lauri Markkanen is out once again today, probably going to see some type of starting lineup with like Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, probably Malik Beasley gets the start once again. And then Jared Vanderbilt and Walker Kessler, but we'll just have to see how that all shakes out. I don't mind Walker Kessler on both sites. I like him a little bit better on DraftKings, obviously, where he's cheaper priced. You can take some shots on Vanderbilt tonight if you want. If Laurie Markman doesn't play, I think it's reasonable to go to Jordan Clarkson. I believe DraftKings is where he looks a little bit better as well. Then for the Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns, Jordan McLaughlin out, both out once again. Anthony Edwards, questionable once again, but he has not missed a game this year, so I do expect him to play. Taurean Prince, questionable once again. Do expect him to play since he played the last time out. And then the big piece here, Rudy Gobert, he is listed as questionable. If he's not unable to go, Naz Reid is going to look very, very good on today's slate overall. So that's on both sides too. Naz Reid will look excellent because we know what he's done in that situation with no Rudy Gobert. Phoenix Suns, still a bunch of guys out today. Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, Chris Paul, Cameron Payne once again. Landry Shamet listed as questionable, so there is a chance that he's back tonight. Well, if he's back, he's in play. If he's not back, pretty much looking at what we've been looking at. Price tags have been rising. Not too much interest in this Phoenix team overall, though. And then for the Memphis Grizzlies, we have Danny Green listed as out. John Morant and John Conchart are both listed as questionable. John Morant sounds like a thigh, I believe it is, issue once again. If he plays, you can play him. If he doesn't play, obviously Tyus Jones would pretty much be like lock button in that situation, but that would be only for the FanDuel site since this game is not on the DraftKings side. And then John Conchar, I believe, is dealing with an illness, so we'll see if he plays or not. Obviously, if he doesn't, just opens up more minutes for like guys like Zaire Williams, David Roddy, and stuff like that. For the Houston Rockets, which is the late game, this game starts 4.5 hours later than any other game today, so that's just kind of interesting when you talk about terms of schedule that they didn't throw in like an 8 o'clock game or something there, just so the casual fan or the hardcore NBA fan, just kind of depending on how you view it, or just the person that's not working today has the game kind of in between there. Otherwise, you're not probably going to watch this Houston and Lakers game either way, if there's not really anything before it, but that's just kind of how it is. I guess you got Monday Night Football tonight as well. But for the Rockets, Kevin Porter Jr. questionable to play. We'll see if he's back tonight or not. Obviously, he's missed the past 2 games. And then for the Lakers, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, Lonnie Walker all out once again. And then Patrick Beverly listed as questionable. Do assume that he'll be back tonight, though. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for today. Obviously, a couple that we'd be looking out throughout the day. Miles Turner for the FanDuel side. Herb Jones makes a little bit of impact, but not too major there. Fred VanVleet's going to be a very, very big one. Bradley Beal could be a major one as well. If he plays, I guess you could take some shots on him. He's probably low owned once again, but you're taking some risk there at the same time. Just keep that in mind. Caleb Martin's going to make a big one just for the Heat rotation overall. Obviously, we know Quinn Capella is expected to play tonight. Rudy Gobert will be a big one, as well as Laurie Markman and John Morant for the FanDuel side as well. But with that being said, we're going to get over to, I think we're going to do FanDuel first, just because it starts a half hour earlier. So I'm going to knock off the injury screen on my view here, and then we'll bring up FanDuel first. So when we're talking about core plays for FanDuel, it's kind of interesting at the point guard position. I went and gave Vincent these $5,000. He's been playing monster minutes. Obviously, we have Tyler Hero in this game. We have potential for Caleb Martin to come back as well. Gabe Vincent's still kind of the only real traditional point guard in the sense left on this team. So his minutes should be safe. You still might get 28 at the worst case scenario. At $5,000, we'd be looking for 25 points out. I'm currently projected for 26, 27. But if he plays monster minutes, once again, he's going to look pretty good overall. This is like a pick that could change throughout the day too, especially if Caleb Martin, gets ruled out. We get like Fred VanVleet ruled out. Maybe this turns into a Malachi Flynn later on in the day. At shooting guard, I'm going Anthony Edwards. His price tag is just reduced at this point in time. Yes, he's been injured, but he's played pretty well the last 2 games. $8,400, looking for 42 points out. He's averaging 41 on the season. Great matchup against the Utah Jazz tonight. Both these teams should be pretty back and forth as well, since Minnesota Timberwolves not the greatest defensive team in the world, especially if there is no Rudy Gobert tonight as well. At small forward, I ended up on Torrey Craig. There wasn't like a lot of guys that look super great to me today. He's a mid-range guy. Maybe we get some values that open up throughout the day, but $5,500 looking for 27, 28 points. I'm currently having projected right about that as well. Obviously, there is just a lot of minutes to go around for this Phoenix team overall. He's still going to look pretty good as well. And just a guy that does a little bit of everything. Power forward, I went up to Giannis. He's at $11,300. Probably one of the cheapest price tags you'll see him at for quite some time. 56, 57 points, what you're looking at for out of him. Pace up spot versus the Pacers tonight. Looks pretty good overall. Currently, I'm projected for 58 points. Has obviously upside for more, especially if this game does stay competitive, which that's kind of the big question at this point in time, I guess, with the Pacers, especially if there is no Miles Turner tonight. Can they keep this competitive against Milwaukee? If you don't want to play honest, you could pay down to like a Julius Randle. Save yourself, $1,500 as well. Then at center, going with Naz Reid. I'm just going to assume that Rudy Gobert is out. If he's not out, this is an easy pivot. You could go over to Walker Kessler on the opposite side of the game, same start time. So we have that easy pivot as well. But Naz Reid at $5,200. Currently, I'm projected for 26 points. Obviously, if there is no Rudy Gobert tonight, he's probably going to get over 30. Look like one of the better point per value plays overall on tonight's slate. But if you were to go with the 5 players that I do have listed, you have $24,600 remaining, just over $6,100 per player. So a little bit interesting there. We're going to have to find some value as we move along, but there could be some value that does open up throughout the day. We already talked about Malachi Flynn quite a bit, but just have to get a little bit creative overall. Otherwise, if you want to pay down from Giannis to someone else to kind of balance out your build a little bit more, that's definitely something you can do on today's slate as well, especially on FanDuel side where you have more games and more players available to you as well. But we'll get over to, but with that being said, we'll get rid of the FanDuel. We'll talk about some DraftKings core plays for today. And if anybody does have any questions, whether it's DraftKings or FanDuel related, feel free to leave it in the comments as well, or the chat, I guess you can call it, for the live stream. So on the DraftKings side, point guard was kind of this hit or miss position. I mean, you can go Gabe Vincent here once again. We'll end up on Colin Sexton at $4,200. Looking for 21 points. He's averaging 22 and a half so far in the season. Currently, I'm projected for 23, 24 tonight. We've seen him come back and play 24 minutes right away, so not too concerned against him. Pretty good matchup against the Timberwolves team, not the greatest defensive team in the world as well. As long as he shoots the ball reasonably well, should look like a pretty solid play overall. Shooting guard, we have Anthony Edwards once again, $8,300 on the DraftKings side, looking for 41, 42 points out. He's averaging 42 points so far on the season. Obviously, Benny reduced price tag since he's been a little banged up, but past 2 games have been very good, so don't really have any concerns there. Should be a pretty good matchup for him against the Utah Jazz as well. Then small forward, going with DeAndre Hunter, price down spot here at $4,800. He's outperformed this price tag every single time besides the last game since he's been back from injury. Playing decent sized minutes, should be a pretty competitive game against this Miami Heat team. I believe this is one of the closest lines overall on the day. So looking for 23, 24 points. I'm currently having projected for about 26 tonight. Could have some upside for more as well. Then at power forward, going with Naz Reid, $4,900, looking for 24, 25 points. He's averaging about 21 on the season. Obviously, if there's no Rudy Gobert tonight, he's going to look pretty good. Not quite as easy of a pivot as it is from FanDuel to Walker Kessler, but if you have him in the utility spot, you can do that pretty easily. Otherwise, at power forward, you can look at some other options as well. And then at center, going with Jared Allen, $5,900. He's on the thumbnail for today, looking for 29, 30 points out. He's averaging 32 so far in the season. Against the Pelicans team tonight, should be a decent matchup for him as well. Going against Valanciunas, not the greatest thing in the world, but still think Jared Allen's going to play enough minutes, get enough rebounds, be productive enough on offense, block a couple shots, look pretty good overall. You're not looking for much out of him. You're looking for that 30 points. I think he gives you 32 or more tonight. He's averaging over 32 on the season. So pretty solid play today, especially on a slate that doesn't have a ton of value, but there are a couple few centers out there, whether or not you want to play him, Mitchell Robinson. Obviously, Naz Reid can play power forward and center on the DraftKings side. And then I believe Walker Kessler and a couple other guys there that you can mix and match as well. Pascal Siakam, you can obviously throw in there as well as Bam Adebayo. But what is this? So somebody's like, how do you just like to hear yourself talk? You don't interact with the chat. Well, I interact with everyone in the chat that does leave a comment. So I believe this is a bot too. So probably just going to get rid of this at this point in time. because they look kind of questionable. So if anybody does have some real questions, feel free to leave them, whether you're watching on the live stream in or on replay. You can leave them down in the comments below as well. At this point in time, this is kind of the core picks that I got, kind of going through some things. If you're interested in a little bit more content, feel free to check out my Patreon over at patreon.com/CoachCraigSports. Monday through Friday, I try to do the guys that project out for my player pool that project 5 times or more. Leave a list there, just kind of give you a baseline for when you're starting to build your lineups, as well as the core picks. As always, these core picks can change throughout the day. I try to update about 20 to 30 minutes prior to lock. Will be a little bit interesting today with the 2 different start times, but that's kind of what I have for right now. I see WW Fresh said who's in and who's out for the Minnesota game. So we don't technically have that information at this point in time. I kind of touched on it before, but it might have been before you got in here. So let me just go back to the Minnesota Timberwolves part. So what we know so far is Jordan McLaughlin, Karl-Anthony Towns, both out. They've both been out for quite some time. Anthony Edwards, Taurean Prince are both listed as questionable today. Both have played. Anthony Edwards technically hasn't missed a game all year, and he's been playing through this injury. And he's played pretty well the last 2 times, so safe to assume that he's in once again. Taurean Prince been dealing with the ankle injury, been playing through it. Safe to assume that he's in once again. Rudy Gobert's kind of the big question mark. Hopefully we hear that news sooner rather than later. If he plays, you can play him in GPPs. It's going to look all right. If he doesn't play, Naz Reid is probably going to be a lock. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. I threw Naz Reid in the core pick because I do think personally myself that Rudy Gobert is going to miss, but we haven't heard any official news at this point in time. And let's see, just with that too, if anybody does have any last minute questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, feel free to comment on the video and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I'll be listing all the injury updates as they do become available throughout the day, as well as many starting lineups as I can get to today. Might miss 1 or 2 here and there, just run through some other things throughout the day, but I'll have that updated core about 20 to 30 minutes prior to lock, or as those updates do become available. But do appreciate everybody that did check out the live stream today, or if you're watching this on replay, definitely do appreciate you. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. Do a lot of NBA DFS content here. Obviously, did a little bit of NFL DFS content as well. Once we get back around to baseball, we'll be doing some MLB DFS content. If you're into NFL draft stuff, I'll be touching some of that as well in the coming weeks. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I have for today's video, today's live stream, whatever you want to call it at this point in time. Do appreciate everybody that tuned in, whether you're watching live or on replay, and hope that each and every one of you has a great rest of your day. I truly do appreciate you for checking the video out.